Welcome everyone to the 2020 Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really excited to welcome back Dr. Susan Pollak. She joined us last year on the summit as well. And she is the co-founder and senior teacher at the Center for Mindfulness and Compassion at Harvard Medical School. She's a Harvard-trained psychologist in private practice, and she has a long personal practice of meditation and yoga. She's the author of 2 books, Sitting Together, Essential Skills for Mindfulness-Based Psychotherapy, and her latest book is Self-Compassion for Parents, Nurture Your Child by Caring for Yourself. And I'm really excited because the title of her session today is I Don't Have Time to Meditate, which is something we hear very often. We'll have all of her website and contact details and how you can order her book below, and she's provided lots of free practices and essays and chapter excerpts and things for us, that will all be below. But welcome and thank you so much for joining us again.
Oh, thank you for inviting me again. Great to be with you.
Thank you so much. So I'm really excited because we've been emailing back and forth, and I know these new practices are things that we can really actually fit into our day, which teachers, parents, and everyone basically will be excited to hear about. So tell us about how you developed these mindfulness in the midst of life practices.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I've had a meditation practice for years. In fact, I grew up in a rather eccentric family. So I started meditating in elementary school. Wow. And it's actually a really interesting story, so let me spend a minute on it. I had an aunt in New York City who was a journalist, and this was in the mid-'60s. She was sent on assignment to cover one of the first swamis, gurus, teachers who opened a center in New York City, who opened an ashram. And she came one summer vacation to visit her sisters, my mother, and she taught us all how to meditate. And it just really clicked for me. And I'm not quite sure why it clicked so easily, and I've thought about that a lot in terms of like how do you teach it to people and what makes it click. But I think it was a good fit for me because it was sort of a stressful childhood and just a kind of pressure cooker of a community that I was living in. And it just felt like immediate sanity, immediate refuge. So I liked it. And then every school vacation, I would go to New York and visit her. And because she had that journalistic spirit of, where's the new idea? There would always be a new teacher in New York City. So I'd come in on school vacation and she would take me to meet the new teacher who was in. So I had a fabulous education in basically meditation, comparative religion. I got taken to Zen masters and Sikh teachers and swamis and Tibetan teachers. And I became fascinated. And in the course of that, I began collecting practices. And it wasn't that I was taking notes or anything, but these practices felt precious to me and I remembered them. So over the course of elementary school, junior high, high school, and then I ended up in college studying comparative religion and psychology, and then in graduate school going to divinity school. I collected, really, it's about 40 years or so of practices, and I started using that in my clinical work. And at that point, there was no research on bringing mindfulness into clinical world. And in fact, it was really taboo. And one funny story is I was sitting with someone and we just hit a wall, and whatever I said was just stupid. And I'm sure parents feel this way, teachers feel this way, therapists feel this way. And I felt like not only did I feel like I was stupid and an idiot, she actually gave me confirmation that indeed I was stupid and an idiot and not very good. So I hit a wall. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say, anything because I knew she would attack me. And I said something like, well, let's try something different. Let me just teach you some stress reduction, teach you some relaxation. And it worked. It shifted the dynamic of what we were doing. But I didn't know what I was doing. And Jack Kornfield, the meditation teacher, once commented that we were, doing this, and this was in the 80s, without adult supervision. And I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I, of course, didn't want to cause any harm. So I said to my supervisor at that point, and I was still in graduate school, like, can I talk to you about this? I, want to get your input and I don't want to cause any harm. And I wish I had a pair of glasses, but just imagine me with sort of bifocals here. And my supervisor looked at me, peering down, looking, quite perturbed, and said, and let me give you my snottiest Harvard accent. And she basically said, Susan, you can do what you want behind closed doors, but I cannot supervise you on this. And I felt like I was doing something taboo, like I had said, I want to sleep with my patient. I mean, it felt like what I was asking was just, had violated a boundary. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this. But then luckily I met people in graduate school who were also interested in mindfulness, and we talked and supported each other. And actually, one of our books that I think I have listed on your the to-read list is on mindfulness and psychotherapy. And this came out of 20 years of conversations with colleagues on what can we do that's safe, what's helpful, how do you bring it in. So that, for many people, that's not just for therapists, it's good for teachers as well. There are practices for working with children, there are practices for special needs, there are practices for anxiety and depression and trauma. So that is also a wealth of information. But anyway, staying with the thread of your question, so I've been teaching this for years and years. And then when I wrote this book on parenting, because my kids now are 20-something, I thought, okay, let me do really accessible practices for parents that are easy to do, that are 3 or 5 minutes. And, most people have 3 minutes. Yeah. And then when I started doing workshops, one participant really woke me up. And, you have these experiences where someone says something to you and it like turns your head around. And you realize that you need to do things differently. So what this woman said, and this was a psychologist, and she said, Susan, I have 3 kids. I'm really busy. I don't have 3 minutes. And I can't close my eyes. Because if I close my eyes, someone's going to get hurt. And it made me stop. And it's like, yeah. And I remembered back to those days when I had, young kids and they were fighting. And I couldn't close my eyes. And in meditation classes, one of the first things they say is sit still, and close your eyes. And you think about it, a mother with young kids cannot sit still, or, a teacher in a class of 20 or 30, isn't going to sit still because she needs to manage her class and can't close her eyes. And I thought, you know what? These practices were originally designed, and the history is that they were designed for monastics. They were not designed for parents living in the midst of life or teachers in a class of rowdy, kids. And I feel like I come by this honestly because my mom was a learning disability specialist. She taught in an inner city class, and she had some rough kids. And yeah, there was no way she was going to be able to close her eyes because there was going to be fight. She was breaking up, fights in the playground or in the classroom. So I felt like this woman's comment was a huge gift because I smartened up about how to teach this. So what I want to do is bring you and your listeners a bunch of practices that they can do in the midst of life. You don't have to sit still, and you don't have to close your eyes. In fact, you don't want to close your eyes because you want to see what's happening. So meditation has not been taught this way. And I feel that, given my 40-something years of meditating, I feel like I have enough street cred to say, it's okay, this works. Yeah. This is legit. And also, if you want some research, I can send you more research, which is very exciting. And I'll send you links, particularly from the neurologist, psychiatrist Judson Brewer, who's done wonderful work on habit change and craving and addictions. And one of the exciting things that he's been finding is that we used to think that the only practices that were effective were these practices where you sat still, informal meditation with your eyes closed, or did long retreats. And those, sitting still for at least 20 to 30 minutes a day, or doing long, silent retreats of, 5 to 10 days. Yeah. And again, come on, what parent really has the time to sit still for 20 to 30 minutes? Yeah. And even more, what parent, particularly mother, can take 5 to 10
I'm going
sorry,
retreat. Bye.
Watch the kids, right? I'm going off to meditate for 10 days in silence. I mean, it doesn't fit. And in fact, some people who run meditation centers are realizing that this is not accessible to parents and realizing that they lose students when they have kids. They just drop out. Yeah. They don't have time. And then if they're lucky, people come back. So anyway, this is a way to really make it effective in life. So I will send you Judson's work, but one of the key point here, I didn't want to drop the ball on the point, was that he's finding in working with people with addictions, how to stop smoking, how to stop craving, how to stop addictive eating, he's finding that what we call the informal practices are as effective, if not more effective, than those formal practices. So I felt like this gave me the theoretical cred to go out there and say, okay, let's bring these informal practices into the lives of parents, teachers, and regular human beings who don't have 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or certainly don't have a week or 10 days to do retreat. Yeah. So we can even stand up to do one of these practices if you want to see what it feels like. But I've tried to make the practices something that are basically stealth meditations. So let's say your kids are fighting, you want to, get centered and calm down, but you need to be there to break up a fight. And often, standing is more effective than sitting. Or you're cooking dinner and they start fighting. What can you do to sort of bring some calm and bring some quiet and bring some sanity to your home while you're cooking? So let me stand up. I'll shift my camera if it doesn't work, but let me teach you a practice that you can do standing. Do you want to get up with me? And
I will also.
Our participants can get, okay. Here, I'm just going to push back so you can see me.
Yeah.
And I'll move my mic closer. Okay, so Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, and the other thing I've tried to do is do practices that are a minute or less.
Wow. People are going to love this.
I really want this to work for people. So just stand comfortably, and I'm keeping my eye on the time so I can really do this in a minute. So just feel your feet on the ground. Let's say your kids are fighting, you're either teaching, there are 20, 30 kids, you're cooking, kids are, squabbling, and you're just trying to bring some sanity to your life. So start by feeling your feet, and just feeling your feet touch the ground. Maybe notice the sensations of your feet, and then just take a few breaths, slowing down. And then not only are you feeling your feet on the ground, feeling grounded and stable and steady, imagine that the ground can greet you or rise up to meet you. So you're feeling held by the ground and supported. Because one of the things I hear from so many parents is that they feel alone, they feel isolated, they don't feel supported. So just in the last few seconds, feet touching the ground, feeling the sensations, and the ground supporting you, meeting you. And 2 or 3 deep breaths. It's as simple as that. So let's come back. I'm curious to see what you noticed, Helen.
Well, yeah, that was amazing. I think it just shows you that it just takes literally seconds, really.
Yeah.
Just to ground yourself. And I love that, the ground welcoming you. It just instantly kind of, I think, maybe puts things in perspective as well. Like, I was imagining like the whole earth and welcoming me and protecting me, kind of.
Wonderful.
So I think it sometimes maybe it's just like that shift in movement as well that changes our attention to something else, right? Rather than what's going on inside and things. So very powerful.
And exactly, it only takes a few seconds. One of my meditation teachers once said, you can shift your state of mind in 3 seconds or 3 breaths.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely true. And another stealth practice that you can do anytime, in any position, sitting, standing, walking. A parent may be walking around the house, cleaning up or picking up toys or just organizing, supervising on the playground. You can just take a deep breath and feel that breath. Feel the full inhalation, feel the full exhalation. And at first I thought, my teacher said 3 breaths. But I found just 1 breath can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that is someone can't say, I'm too busy to breathe, because guess what? We're breathing anyway. But it's more just bringing awareness to the breath. And the other thing I like during the standing or just feeling your attention drop as you breathe in and out is often when we're in our heads, we're thinking, we're ruminating, we're anticipating what we're going to say, or upset about what someone said to us and what can we say back or whatever. If you drop down into your body, especially dropping into your feet, that's the biggest distance you can create between your head and your thoughts and your feet. So just being in your feet gives you immediate perspective, which is often all we need.
No, just shifting your attention and and you suddenly are present again instead of maybe trying to navigate everything that's going on around you. So yeah, really, really great, and would be great in the classroom as well. Where, as you said before, you can't close your eyes or do anything, but you can just take that moment and even share that with your students, I think would be great as well.
And I know one of the practices I shared with you last time was awareness of the hands, and I don't know if we can link to last year's because I don't want to repeat myself. But let me teach you something else new that's good for teachers or parents.
Okay.
And this one you can do sitting down because, teachers are often sitting down as well, giving assignments, and parents can be sitting down during dinner or whatever. And this is just called Trust Your Seat.
Okay.
So again, this is like 30 seconds, and just feel yourself sitting. Again, keeping your eyes open, and just feeling that your seat rises up to meet you. And in meditation practice, the teachers will often say, feel your seat or ground with your seat. But this is a deeper practice where you feel your seat holding you, and that you can really trust this ground of being. And it's, again, a sense of having support. If you're sitting in a chair, not only is your seat being held, you're hopefully getting some back support, and your legs are being held. So just letting yourself settle into that, and just feeling yourself being held by the seat, your legs being held by the floor, your back being held, and perhaps take another breath, breathing in deeply, breathing out, and just feeling that contact. Again, simple, easy, eyes open. No one needs to know what you're doing. But you've just grounded, you've taken a moment, you've done what some meditation teachers call a pause. So maybe you feel like you're going to yell at a parent, at a student, or at a child. But by taking that pause, you've just slowed things down. So maybe you could do something more skillful than blow your top.
Wow, yeah, that actually really feels amazing to do that. My mind kept saying, you are supported. I feel supported, like a mantra or something. But I could literally feel the chair, and I think that's such a wonderful, really simple thing. I mean, we're always sitting down, as you said, for meals or watching a show or in the classroom and things, and it just kind of brings that instant relief or presence, I guess, into your body, and that is so quick. I mean, it's literally 30 seconds or less.
And it can feel so comforting, just that sense of being held by
you can really feel the chair supporting, which I've never really noticed before, so that's quite amazing.
So it helps us tap into our resources. Okay, it may not feel like I'm just thinking of teachers, much support from the school administration or the principal, but I can bring some support to myself. So I think it helps us feel more powerful, less helpless, and more resourced.
Yeah.
And I know you have some questions to ask me, but can I teach you one more really quick?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So this is adapted from a wonderful Zen master named Joan Halifax, and it's a practice that she uses with caregivers, especially caregivers for people who are chronically ill or dying. And I've adapted it because it's one of those great in the midst of life practices. And she calls it strong back, soft front. So of course I want to give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
But let me tell you how you can apply this in life. So just start by feeling your back, feeling your backbone, letting it feel strong, and then tuning into your strength, your power, perhaps your intelligence, your intention, and just also feeling the flexibility of your backbone. So not only is it strong and it holds us upright, but the backbone's also very flexible, and you may want to move back and forth if you like, front and back, just to feel your strength, feel your groundedness. And then because you want to be receptive to your children or your students or whatever, caregiver, really being with someone, connecting with someone, you want your front to be soft. So just imagine that you can soften your belly rather than clenching, and you're not in fight mode. You're being giving, you're being receptive. So soften your belly, soften your chest, perhaps even softening your jaw. Often we hold a lot of tension in our jaw. And softening your eyes, your cheeks. So at once, you have that sense of your strength, your dignity, your intelligence, your integrity, but you're also open and receptive to your kids, to your students, to your colleagues. And this is also a really good practice to do if you're in some sort of meeting and there's a confrontation and you feel anger rising, or you feel like someone's not listening to you or taking you seriously. Take a second, strong back, soft front. So you're not being combative, yet you're feeling your power.
Yeah.
So again, what was that, a minute? If that? And what was that like for you?
Yeah, I think they're so simple, aren't they? And it just shows you how fast you can change, what you're feeling. And I love that, the strong back and the soft front, because I think I know that this practice will be useful for me because I can get riled up very easily. So
every other human being.
Yeah. Anyway, so I can see this working in a lot of situations myself, and just bringing that calmness, I think, and but still realizing that you're strong, maybe by not feeling like you're giving in, but that you're kind of negotiating, but still feeling that interior calm yourself. I think would be really useful. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another practice that can really help us feel resourced. So
Right.
I like doing that practice when I'm feeling exhausted or depleted. And I think one of the reasons Joan Halifax uses that with caretakers is because when we're caretaking, especially when we're sitting with someone who's dying or terminally ill, it's exhausting. And this is a way to sort of restore ourselves.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
sometimes you feel like you're pushed beyond your limits.
Yeah.
I like this as a way to sort of gather energy when you're exhausted or angry or totally depleted.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful, great practices. So thank you for sharing those. So tell us a little bit more about having self-compassion, because I know you're a big advocate of self-compassion, and why that's so important for parents or teachers, caregivers maybe, to make sure they're doing that.
Well, let me jump in. I don't know about you, but I grew up in a fairly critical family. So I often felt like I wasn't doing it right and I wasn't good enough. And that what we call critical voice in the field of psychology, or, the inner critic, that would really come up as I was parenting. So I felt like, other parents have it together. They know what I'm doing. They're doing a better job. And I think it's harder now for young parents because of, Instagram, Facebook. So you look at people's Instagram feed and, everyone looks perfect and their kids are beautiful. And they look like they have it together. But the reality is that everyone struggles. No one feels adequate enough. And we're constantly looking over our shoulder. In America, at least, there was all this interest in how other parents do it. There's a book that was a huge bestseller called Bringing Up Bebe, and then there was Tiger Mother, and then there was a whole slew of books from every country, like how the Danes parent, with less stress, on and on and on. And I think all of us feel a sense of anxiety about parenting. And even cultural historians are saying, parents really feel that parenting is such a fraught issue. I know in the States, at least, we talk about helicopter parents and, snowplow parents. And in America, at least, there have been these college scandals where parents will try to, pay money and be unethical to get their kids into college rather than, you do the best you can. And it's okay to let the kid learn. You don't have to snowplow the way for your child. In fact, it's better to let the child learn to climb over those snowbanks. And sometimes, who actually it just snowed in Boston last week, snow and ice, and you have to learn to navigate, the rough roads. You can't always clear the path for your kid. Yeah. So one thing that helps tremendously is being kind to ourselves. So one of my favorite, again, really quick practices for parents who are feeling inadequate, beating themselves up, feeling like they're not good enough, is what we call the self-compassion break. And this was something developed by the researcher Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who developed the Mindful Self-Compassion Program. And I've really adapted it for parents, so you can put it in your own words. So let's say you've hit a difficult situation, something with your child, you feel like you're not good enough, or your child isn't good enough, and the immediate urge is to fix the child. Right. And one of the things that's different about this parenting book and self-compassion is we're not trying to fix the child. You're tending to, or you're including yourself in the circle of care. So it helps you from burning out. As parents, we're so focused on making everything work and tending to others, tending to our kids and our parents and our siblings and, our coworkers, that we rarely include ourselves in the circle of care. And again, this is a simple 1-minute way to do it. So you just stop, you think what it is you're upset about, and rather than to jump in and think about how you can make it go away or how you can fix it, you just say, for example, okay, use your name, Helen, this is a moment of difficulty. This is hard. If you like, you can put a hand on your chest or 2 hands on your chest or hand on the chest, belly. If you need a little extra comfort, just feeling that comfort. And then you think, okay, I'm not alone with this. At any given point, in the world, there are probably thousands, if not millions, of people out there who are having a similar difficulty or having a really frustrating day. So this is not personal. I'm not alone with this. All parents have a hard time. And then just simply, may I be kind to myself? And if that even feels uncomfortable, being kind to yourself, because a lot of parents aren't used to any sort of kindness, you could say even more simply, okay, what do I need right now? Do I just need to take a few breaths? Do I need to take a walk? Do I need to call a friend? What do I need so I feel less angry, less burnt out, and less exhausted? And I want to check in with you to see how that was, and then just tell you a really interesting piece of research that just came out that I want to tell you about. But how was that for you?
Yeah, that was, I think, the thing that struck me most was when you said, everyone struggles, and we really do tend to forget that. As you said, in this kind of perfect social media world, that I think there's a lot of guilt in parenting and things, and I think just that feeling of you're not alone, and there's actually millions, I would say millions of people going through, because the things are all the same, aren't they? I mean, it might be specific situations, but the kind of feelings and things, I think, are the same for parents around the world. So I think, it's a really supportive practice just to realize that in itself and think, this isn't the end of the world. It's just a difficulty, as you said, and maybe I can just do something nice for myself for a few minutes. And also, the circle of care. I think that's so true, that we miss ourselves out, or we make excuses that there's no time for ourselves because we've got so many things for others. So just puts things in more perspective, I think, about how important that is, and that we really can help others more as well when we're in a better place. Yeah.
I think you totally nailed it, in that a lot of people feel guilty taking even a moment for themselves.
Yeah.
And the African-American poet and writer Audre Lorde put it well. She said, self-care is not an indulgence. It's an act, a radical act of self-preservation.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think we often feel guilty taking me time. And I'm not talking about something that is like frivolous or indulgent. People say, take a bubble bath. And I think, or get a mani-pedi. It's like, no, that's not, if you're having a really hard time, that's not enough. What is it that you really need? And often people are feeling very alone and isolated and exhausted. So this is a perfect segue into this new research that I just read about yesterday. And this is a study from Belgium on burnout and exhaustion. And one thing we've always known is that parents of young children are exhausted. And this was a study that looked at parents of older children. And it found that exhaustion was rife in parents of older children as well. So if you think about that, one of the questions I wonder, and I'll give you the link so you can share it with your listeners, is, are we, because I was trained as a developmental psychologist, are we exhausted throughout the cycle of parenting?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it never ends.
And my kids are out of the house now, but it's like I have a lot of parents in my clinical practice, and my sense is most parents are exhausted at almost every stage of the journey.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at parents now with kids in high school, and all the pressure around college, and then all the pressure around technology, and getting their kids off their devices so they can actually study or have a conversation. And then looking at parents with middle schoolers and how stressful that is, with kids being bullied, with mean girls, with bullying on social media. So I don't know. I guess I'm interested to see what your listeners might say, and maybe we could pose this as a question.
Yeah.
Is there any stage now in the parenting process where you don't feel exhausted?
Yeah. It's a really good question, because I think, as you said, every kind of stage has its own things to deal with, and I think there is an increase in kind of bullying, and then the use of technology and all these distractions, and I think I'm mom of 2 girls, and I think there's a lot of not feeling good enough from social media, seeing everyone with their filters and all the perfect and everything, and there's, I think, stress and tiredness and overload at every stage. So maybe self-compassion is something that can really help parents to just have that space,
And one thing I'm finding now is I get a glimpse as my, one kid just got married, and one kid sort of, striking out. Both kids are living in different cities, but the pressures never stop. And I think you're always worried about them. You're worried about jobs, and can they make a living, and will they find an appropriate partner, and there's always...
That's so true. I actually asked I was just in Vietnam with my dad. I was telling Susan before, and I actually asked my dad, have you stopped worrying about me? Or does it ever stop? I actually asked him that, because my 2 girls are now in 2 different countries, and you're thinking, are they safe? Are they happy? Do they have good friends? Are they supportive? And, we're in touch every day, but I don't think it doesn't just stop when they leave the house, does it?
So what did your dad say?
He said, no, it's kind of always there. I think he said he doesn't feel stressed, worried about us anymore, but of course he always wants to check that we're okay and happy and things. So it is something that's kind of stays with you, that wanting to make sure that nothing happens to the people that you love, right? So
well, I'm with you on that. My mom just turned 95, and she still worries about us. It's like, drive safely. It's icy out there.
Or, if he doesn't hear from us, and we usually, but I got blocked for some reason off Facebook, which is, we normally message each other, and, my whole thing just vanished off Facebook for 3 days. I have no idea why still, but got back on today, and so that was, he was like sending me messages on my actual phone, like, what happened? Why? You just vanish. So I think, you're always kind of wondering, especially when you live in different cities or different countries, and you maybe only see each other a few times a year. That communication is so important, like just on a kind of daily basis, I think, to know. It's funny, because I remember when I was in my late teens and I was like backpacking through Europe, and there was no way to contact and my parents, right? So, send them a postcard. They literally had no idea how, and I was like, how could they survive that? Yeah, so I think it actually, like, maybe it causes more stress being able to contact people so easily, because if we don't hear, then we suddenly think
Right.
something's wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting, very interesting, and yeah, we'll ask our viewers on the Facebook page what they think, if there's any time that seems, to be less stressful than others. But I think looking back, I can't remember a time that was just all stress-free. Like, there was always something at every stage, and you always think, oh, in a few years that
Yeah.
things will calm down, but it actually doesn't. Yeah.
And someone asked me a great question when I was doing a workshop for parents. And she said, do you think you need more self-compassion as you get older? And I thought that was a great question, because the
Right.
more I
Yeah.
thought about it, yeah, I think you do. Our bodies age.
Yeah.
Things fall apart.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
so, but I think knowing that everyone struggles is good, because in these days of
Yeah,
Instagram,
that's huge. Yeah.
Facebook, it doesn't look like everyone struggles.
Yeah.
It looks like you're inadequate and everyone else has their act together.
Yeah.
And
And I think
that's
there's so much hidden, and I mean, I know of lots of situations where you just don't realize what people are going through. Like, people are going through very difficult times and things, but they don't share that. They only share the nice, lovely parts of life. And
right, what's been curated.
yeah, so it does make maybe others feel like, oh, nobody else is feeling this, but yeah, definitely, I think that's something really to keep in mind, is that we're not alone, and that
Yeah.
there's lots of people out there, and lots of people to support you as well. I think if lots of people don't like to ask for help or get help, but yeah, that's another part, I guess, of self-compassion, is knowing when to ask for help, right?
Or feeling that it's okay to ask.
Yeah.
I've done a bunch of interviews with parents for this book as well, and often people feel that they can't really show their authentic self, or they don't want their friends to know that they're struggling, or
Exactly.
they may have friends beyond the Facebook friends, but everyone wants to put their best face forward. And also, so many environments now are so competitive that they don't feel they can be authentic. Like, I'm really having a hard time right now, or I'm going through a divorce, or my mother or father's ill, or my child is ill. So often parents end up feeling enormously isolated.
Yeah.
But the more compassion we can have for ourselves and others, the more we can really connect with people and not get caught in competition. There's a chapter in the book on comparing mind, and we end up constantly comparing on the playground, at the parent-teacher association meetings, rather than really come back to our common humanity.
Yeah.
How can we really be here for each other rather than compete with each other? How can we be kind to each other?
Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan, for coming on and sharing all those great, such quick techniques that we can bring into our everyday lives. Is there anything you want to say to our viewers just before we finish off today?
No, just thanks for listening, and I hope the website and articles and audio downloads are a good resource
Yes.
to help you stay sane and balanced.
Yeah, thank you so much, and for sharing all the research and everything. We'll have all the links there to all of those resources that were mentioned, and to Susan's website, and also her book, which has great short meditations in it as well for parents to do. When they're washing dishes and things like that. So, yeah, we hope you enjoy those, and we will put up some discussion on Facebook to get your ideas as well. But thank you so much again for taking the time and joining us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.